Good afternoon. Welcome to Committee of the Whole, Tuesday, June 4. Good afternoon to Kent City Council Committee of the Whole for Tuesday, June 4, 2024. And first up, we have roll call. Kim, may we have roll call, please?
Thank you. Council President Kaur.
Here.
Councilmember Boyce.
Here.
Councilmember Boyd. Here. Councilmember Fincher. Councilmember Larmer.
Here.
Councilmember Michaud.
Here.
Councilmember Troutner. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Next up, approval of minutes. Councilmember, may we have a motion, please?
So move. Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you so much. Next up, we have ordinance amending Chapter 2.80 of the Kansas City Code. Our City Attorney, Tammy White.
So Tammy White, City Attorney. Oh, sorry. Just a bug that startled me. What you have before you is really a housekeeping ordinance. This is one of the things that you kind of come across in your career and you're like, how did this happen? I can't really tell you how the current state of the ordinance came to be, but what I'm trying to do is clean it up for you. So back in the 1980s, there were a couple ordinances that were adopted that established a deferred compensation committee. And so that committee would organize a deferred compensation plan that is made available to city employees to invest their money. So they can put their money into this plan to invest. When that was adopted in the 1980s, there was a 3-member panel that was established for that committee, and the individuals were appointed by the mayor. Somewhere along the line, roughly around 2009, the membership of that committee expanded. So it increased from 3 individuals up to 5, and there were certain positions that were designated to serve on that committee. For whatever reason, and I don't know the answer to it, the code was never updated to reflect that change. So the ordinance you have before you today would now formally increase that committee to members of 5, and it would consist of the employees in the positions of Chief Administrative Officer, Finance Director, Human Resources Director, Benefits Manager, and the City Attorney. And that committee makeup has been in existence since at least 2009. So it's not anything new. It's how business has been run since that was increased back then. What this also does is provide that if one of the members on that committee are not able to attend a meeting, that they are able to identify or appoint a pro tem to attend in their place. And so that would still allow action to occur before the committee so it doesn't have to stall until the actual employee is available. And then finally, it provides more generally that the deferred compensation plan made available to employees is that selected by the committee. What the code had from back in the 80s, we no longer have any of those plans in existence. So those are plans that were later combined back in 2009, and one of them went away and one of them changed their names. So to avoid having to come back to you anytime there is a change in the plan that's made available, we've just made it more general that it's applicable once it's voted on by the deferred compensation plan committee. The one other thing, because our code does not currently match how operations have been handled, is that this now would declare an emergency so that if you were to approve this ordinance, it would be immediately effective. And so because it's being presented on an emergency basis, it does require unanimous adoption. And so it's being presented to you tonight on COW. If it passes out of here, it would then move on to your council agenda tonight on the consent calendar, and it would need to pass there unanimously. Additionally, what it does is it ratifies all past acts. So any prior action that the committee has taken, your adoption of this ordinance now will ratify all of those actions, just to avoid any sort of technicality that maybe because the committee was existed of 5 members, that maybe there was some lacking in the authority that they had when they adopted some of the decisions they made. So this would be more of a cleanup just to make sure that everything that happened previously has your stamp of approval on it. And then finally, this ordinance would also apply retroactively. So not only would it be effective today, but then would apply back to the actions from 2009. So I think those are all the high points of what I covered in the ordinance. Because of the number of changes, it was cleaner to do a repeal of the existing Chapter 2.80 and adopt a whole new chapter. And so because of that, I included in the appendix a copy of the existing Chapter 2.80 so you could see the language that's in effect now. With that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Tammy. Any questions? Comments? All right. I'll make the motion. I move to adopt ordinance number 4493, amending Chapter 2.80 of the Kent City Code to update the city's code provisions concerning the deferred compensation program made available to city employees.
I second it.
Motion and second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Thank you, Tammy.
Thank you.
All right, and we'll turn it over to Councilmember Larmer for Economic and Community Development, please.
Thank you, Council President. We have one presentation today, information only. It is a Behavioral Health Facilities Project Update with Lindsay Walker.
Hi, everyone. All right, so we talked back in March about these new emerging community-based behavioral health facilities, and we got a lot of great feedback. We continued conducting research with the Department of Health, community boards, as well as private healthcare providers. So they were all eager to continue these conversations since Kent is recognized as having a gap in service coverage. The goal of this presentation is to provide a quick recap of opioid treatment programs, enhanced service facilities, and intensive behavioral health treatment facilities, propose new siting locations, and get your feedback on conditions of approval. This item was moved from council workshop, so we are seeking your input in this presentation. We have 2 times set aside in the presentation for discussion. So first, I want to touch base on opioid treatment programs. So last year, we had to quickly adopt Ordinance 4469 in response to the new state law known as the Blake Fix. This added opioid treatment programs as essential public facilities and updated statutes concerning how local governments could regulate these programs. We didn't have much time to discuss siting and conditions of these uses, so we wanted to revisit our development codes to discuss possible changes. So these maps show where opioid treatment programs are currently allowed. And then there were concerns about the area I've circled there, south of 167th, due to their proximity to residentially zoned areas. And because implementation was a rush job to meet state requirements last year, we didn't change any boundaries at that time. However, we did promise to come back and research that and evaluate the existing boundaries and potential expanded locations. The Land Use and Planning Board indicated that they'd like to see the boundaries south of 167th removed, so this is that circled area. Members of our Human Services Board were hesitant to remove the whole area, but provided feedback to just remove areas east of 88th Avenue, which I have squared there. So we hear the concerns of the Human Services Board and that they don't want to remove possible sites. However, they also noted that there were not any current services for co-location or support in the area right now. Staff, we have evaluated the area south of 167th and agree it makes sense to be removed, especially given concerns that we have heard from the school districts regarding students walking to Central Avenue to get to their school bus pickups.
I'm sorry, did you say it's been removed?
It has not been removed. We're going to discuss that today.
Oh, okay.
So here's our full zoning map. While we are proposing to remove a part of the existing area where opioid treatment programs are allowed, we would propose to expand to other allowed uses in the city. So best practices in the Land Use and Planning Board agree it makes sense for them to be located near frequent transit. To give a visual of our proposed zonings for opioid treatment programs, we have included a revised version of our zoning map, which I will show here. So where we currently allowed opioid treatment programs is that center area circled, which is in the industrial area. Where we would propose to expand them is the CM zone, which runs along Pacific Highway and Central Avenue. And then this blue circle shows the area that we just discussed removing due to their proximity to apartment complexes and other residential uses.
Question, Lindsay. So are you saying we're removing that green circle?
So that's what we discussed today and get your feedback on.
I have a hard time with this map, so is it possible you can give some Water Street cross area, because I can't follow it.
Yes.
Please.
So here's the commercial manufacturing zone, and I've highlighted a couple businesses along those routes. The boundary is in the red for the CM zone. So this is where we're proposing to expand to. So you can see for Pacific Highway, there's public storage would be in the center of that area. We also have the Woodmart Shopping Center to the south. And then Central Avenue, starts a little bit north of Site 1, so that's right at Willis. And and then goes down to the boundary in the horseshoe area.
For clarity, I'm so sorry.
You're fine.
Map, I used to do that. So are you talking about, the blue area is what we are talking about, the ones that circle?
Oh, so the blue areas, that's just showing those locations, those businesses, so you can get an idea when you're driving down the street, you know, what area you're in. So this is where we're proposing to expand to, is the CM zoning. Currently, it does not allow any opioid treatment programs in this area, but this is the area that we felt may be appropriate due to transit.
Okay, I'm tracking you now. Thank you.
Of course. So we do have a list of existing conditions of approval for opioid treatment programs, and these are a few proposed conditions we wanted to discuss today. So while we do require a conditional use permit, which does provide public notice and allow public feedback from the community, we would also require proposing these sites to be front Pack Highway and Central Avenue. And that's mostly due to the proximity to transportation. And then we also believe it'd be beneficial to have those services along those main roadways so they're easier to find and they're not tucked back behind other businesses. And then to reduce concerns of noise impacts, we would propose to require facilities to provide signage for any outside clients to keep noise to a minimum. It doesn't mean that we're expecting any noise impacts from these facilities, but they do operate in early morning hours, so we thought a reminder would be helpful for any clients who are outside. However, when we met with members of the Human Services Board, they did have concerns that the quiet zone signage requirements may put neighbors on a higher alert and have more concerns about it. So I wanted to go ahead and get your feedback for opioid treatment programs. And how do you all feel about removing that circled area south of 167th? And if I need to go back to the map, just let me know.
Could you please?
Yes. So here is the existing where we allow in the middle of the industrial zone. 167th is going through the center. There we go. So this roadway here is 167th. And then we have 88th Avenue right at this blue line.
Where is Denny's? I think that might help us.
Oh, it should be right off.
Tractor Supply.
Let's see.
Okay, so
Yep,
it's,
right in this area.
okay, gotcha, so it's that block.
So we're removing this area, but we do have associated behavioral health. Is that not part of the zoning area? They're on Central. It's outside of the area. So will they not be allowed to, I guess?
So this is specific for opioid treatments only,
gotcha, okay.
not broader.
They don't, okay.
So
And
this
they
would
have no
not
plans
affect
to.
their operations at all. They wouldn't become non-conforming or anything. So yeah, the proposal here is there's a lot of apartments and students cross through all of these facilities. We've heard from the school district already about it being dark and not feeling the feelings of kind of safety for the kids and sidewalks and other things. So the idea was remove this area, but we're adding some other areas. And when we did site evaluation, we really didn't think it really made sense for our locations. There are no locations here right now, so it didn't necessarily make sense. We're not removing an opportunity from someone who has, we don't know of any pending permits or something that someone's trying to come in to do.
I have a question.
You?
Oh, it was me, sorry. I was just going to say, I'm okay removing that square. It is just that much closer to those apartments, so I definitely would support removing that.
And staff's recommendation was to remove the entire circle, not just, Human Services thought
okay.
just the square.
Oh, gotcha,
But
okay.
students are still having to travel all the way to Central.
Okay.
So while the facility might not be there, students would still be crossing through. So we still thought removing that entire
Removing the entire
area.
circle, okay. I would be in favor of that as well.
Councilmember Michaud, followed by Councilmember Boyce, please.
Thank you, Lindsay. Okay, sorry, we're having map problems today. Okay, so currently it is allowed in this entire yellow area on the left side.
Correct. Yes.
We are only removing it from the circle.
Yes.
That's
the
what
bottom
you're
half.
suggesting.
Yeah.
So it would still be allowed in that northern portion.
Correct. As well as the proposed CM zonings.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
You good? Yeah, same here. I mean, Councilmember Michaud, being an Army person, you should be able to read a map, right? But it's been a long time for us, so I get it, right? I have a hard time also. But yeah, I think about the kids, right? So I 100% support this here. We want to try to keep this away from our kids as much as possible. So I would definitely support moving the circle. Okay?
Councilmember Boyd.
Yeah, so I guess because of the zoning, right, we're removing these OTP centers, right?
Can you repeat that?
We're removing these OTP centers, right?
So there is not one in that circled area, and we don't have any indication of someone proposing one in that area. But the goal was, because this really isn't close to transit, that we would expand it to areas, the allowed use to areas that would have more transit opportunities. And then based on the concerns for the residential uses and not having the right infrastructure for the kids walking to school, for them to feel safely.
Okay.
I think we can move along.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then does the commercial manufacturing, that CM zone, seem like an acceptable location? We heard that transportation was an important factor from the Land Use and Planning Board. So that runs along Pacific Highway and Central Avenue.
And go back to the map again,
Yes.
please. We want to make sure we're getting it right, that's all. And you want to circle.
Yep, so that would be these, this is Central Avenue right here.
Yep.
And then over here is Pacific Highway.
Yep. Okay.
I'll just say, I don't personally like the northern boundary on the Central Avenue. I feel like that Willis intersection has
Okay.
had enough problems for so long. I'm concerned about that. I'm not opposed to that section, but I'd like to maybe see it start a little further south.
Okay.
And then also, I do have a question. Is there no other, in this like black up in the industrial area, that transportation doesn't run through? It just feels like, is there nothing else up in there?
So I'm not familiar with that.
There is transportation. The reason why we aren't expanding uses in that area, so this was established before we had our Rally the Valley certification process for the manufacturing and industrial centers. So expanding a use in an industrial area for opioid treatment programs and other behavioral health facilities are not recommended because it's not located near other services. So the idea of access to other co-services is more limited. Plus, it also means that we would be eating up industrial manufacturing area. And so it would be incompatible with what PSRC is requiring for that zone. So nothing in that zone would be really on. We have it now because we did it before the Rally the Valley, but adding in more and expanding it would not be compatible.
Councilmember Boyce.
Thank you. I think either one of the locations is okay. I mean, I know the difference between Central and Pacific Highway. I think they both probably have issues, right? So if I had to prioritize them, I would say one is Pacific and two is Central. But I'm okay with either site. I mean, as long as they got transportation, I think that's the key. We want to be able to make sure they can get there and go back. So, and hopefully, you know, I mean, it's just, I would hope there wouldn't be any crime generating there. People's going there for a reason, right? So
Correct.
I'm hoping they go in there to get treatment and not to cause havoc. So I'm okay either way.
And then do the proposed conditions seem appropriate? That's them fronting those main roadways in the areas? And is there anything else you would like to see as a condition?
Councilmember Boyce and Councilmember Larmer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just curious, so as we move forward, this probably don't answer your question, but I'm going to say from a process perspective, right? So we're going to be, as we go down the road, we're going to be proposing in these possible locations. So I would imagine most people are not going to like that, right? I mean, it's just that negativity stuff that goes with that. So what process are we using as we start going down the road to get people to understand what we're doing, why we're doing?
Sure. Well, these are essential public facilities, so they are required. We would have to allow them, but we can put conditions on them as long as it's not more stringent than other types of healthcare facilities. But I think we do already have one in operation running as it's supposed to, where people come before work, they get treatment, they get help, and they move on throughout their day to go to the work and, live a productive life as they're,
And these are, as an essential public facility, they will be required to have a conditional use permit, so there will be neighborhood notification. So if there's a specific concern, that can be brought up in the hearing, and the hearing examiner has the discretion to add appropriate mitigation at that point.
Correct.
One follow-up, please, Madam Chair. Are they secure type of thing? I mean, people just come and go in and out freely, or?
People are free to come and go. It's like a typical appointment facility, so we do require some additional space inside for waiting, and then a lot of facilities will have areas for children to wait or other family members who may have arrived with them. So typically operations are inside, and one of the things we require is their facilities operations plan and how they plan to identify and ask people that may be hanging around to move off premises and not just hang out. But most people don't want to hang out after they've received treatment.
Councilmember Larmer and Councilmember Michaud, do you still have a question? Okay.
So regarding the quiet zone signage, I am concerned also about that, creating more concern than necessary. And given that these are not near residential zones, I'm trying to figure out who's really going to be disturbed at 3 a.m. and whether it's worth the signage.
Yes, there was one area where it could potentially back up to residential area, so I will show you. So this is like a higher density residential area, right here, like potentially like apartments or townhomes. So I think our thought process were in case they had concerns, but I certainly absolutely see what you're saying.
Councilmember Michaud, followed by Councilmember Fincher.
Thank you, Madam Chair, or Madam President. What about no loitering signs? You kind of addressed it, but I think that would address some of the concerns, especially along Willis on that intersection.
Perfect.
Councilmember Michaud got mine. That was my question also.
Okay, we can move along.
Great. So now I'm going to provide a recap on other facilities that we are proposing to add to our land use table. These are inpatient behavioral health facilities, community-based, so they're smaller, up to 16 beds. Enhanced service facilities are facilities that provide support and services to clients who are stable, but they cannot live independently. No mental health treatment is provided on site, but care is focused on personal care, behavioral health, and nursing. So after speaking with state agencies, we discovered that these facilities are unique to Washington State, and we currently have 12 in operation. They truly are long-term facilities, and discharging typically happens if a patient is ready to move to a facility with a less intense level of care, like an adult family home, an assisted living home, or sometimes back home with a caretaker. And then intensive behavioral health treatment facilities are similar, but they do provide a higher level of service compared to enhanced service facilities. Treatment is voluntary, and individuals are typically placed here after discharging from a higher intensity facility or if they're being diverted from state and local hospitals. These facilities focus on the needs of the person there and will offer on-site behavioral health interventions, psychosocial rehabilitation, and the development of skills to integrate back into the community. So these facilities are not designed to care for people with dementia or strong medical needs that prevent them from being independent in their activities of daily living. And the goal is not to maintain them at their current level of functioning, but to improve functioning so they can transition into a more independent setting. We had a lot of questions in March, and I was able to get feedback from state departments as well as private medical providers. So there were concerns about persons at risk being diverted to Kent, essentially, to receive treatment at these facilities. And we learned that the placement options are actually client-driven. So the client dictates where they want their care. For intensive behavioral health treatment, referrals typically happen through their insurance. But for enhanced service facilities, they have case managers, and trends show that they typically stay in their community or they move to a facility that is closer to family. Home and Community Services has case managers that work closely with clients to help them with the placement process, and they can also move to other facilities as needed. And then many facilities utilize a shuttle for group activities. So as a reminder, we had the state model ordinance that we used to help consider siting recommendations. And that model ordinance stated that while siting them in low-density residential neighborhoods may not be appropriate just due to the size of the building and the limited transportation access, they can be compatible with a wide range of zonings, including mid and high density and commercial, and then with appropriate permit requirements. And then citing behavioral health facilities in industrial areas or other highly isolated locations is generally not recommended due to the need for proximity to services and the intent to provide community-based care. It also goes against that PSRC requirement for manufacturing and industrial centers. So here's our zoning map again. When we talk about medium and high residential areas, we're talking about these brown areas, and I know it's kind of hard to see, but you can see right here, up here, we have a cluster right here. So these are going to be high to medium density residential over here. And then for like community commercial areas, that's in pink. So we have a little bit over here. We have a couple pockets, kind of placed throughout our lower density residential. And then we also have browns or an orange for general commercial. So in the center, red indicates downtown, but we do have this darker red that's near Pack Highway that may be appropriate. It's a mixed use area. And then the blue area is industrial and the yellow areas are a low density residential. So based on the model ordinance, we're thinking some of the brown areas, pinks, oranges, those might be the best areas to look at.
So for that,
Yes.
Thank you. So the brown area, that
MRM.
yeah, well, give me, what is the street, what address, what location is that?
Well, they're kind of placed throughout the city. So this,
It's like central, not central.
Is it Central?
East of Central. Also.
yeah, so this is, yep, that Benson corridor.
Okay.
Kangley down here.
Oh, okay.
I think that brown MRM
Yeah.
is the post office area.
Post office?
Is that like by the post office, the brown along 240th?
I believe so.
Okay.
And then, we'll have pockets of community commercial up here to look at.
All right.
Okay. So for feedback, are there general characteristics that we should prioritize for siting these facilities? Are there things that should be avoided when we look at siting these facilities?
Madam Chair. No, I have answered your question. I got another question though before you get there.
Sure.
So, sometime when you talk about behavioral health and mental health, is it used interchangeable a lot of times, right? So, can you just help me from a behavioral health versus mental health? Is this
Absolutely.
one is the psychological?
Yeah, so
versus-
behavioral health is more encompassing, so it includes mental health, it includes codependencies, substance use disorder. So it could be someone recovering from substance use disorder, or it could be someone with autism who needs help with daily functioning.
That's the behavior,
Yep, that's all inclusive of behavioral health.
and the mental will be more.
I'm not sure how that's defined within the state codes.
So mental health would be things that you would think of more traditionally, like OCD, depression. It's behavioral health includes both. So it includes the
Okay.
mental health and the use disorder treatment as
A
well.
lot of people use it interchangeable.
And so normally we use the term behavioral health because it's broader.
Okay.
For the enhanced service facilities, that truly is serving both populations, mental health and substance use disorder.
Okay.
The intensive behavioral health facilities, those truly are serving mental health.
Gotcha.
They're not used for substance use disorder.
Thank you for that.
Okay.
Councilmember Larmer?
Yeah, I have a question sort of along the same lines of understanding a little bit more about these facilities before we jump into these questions. Just want to reiterate, so both of these are long-term. There's not,
Enhanced service facilities are long-term, typically housing people for life, or they can go to an adult family home or assisted living. Intensive behavioral health facilities, it can range. The goal is to have them integrate back into the community, so it can range 2 weeks or it could take multiple months for someone, to gather those skills to integrate back into the community.
okay, are there any cases of, I guess, failure to participate in the programs and being kicked out of the facility,
So I don't have any history on that because they are new emerging uses. There aren't a lot of facilities like that around the state. I want to say there's like 12 for enhanced service around the whole entire state. And maybe they're working towards, I want to say 9 for the intensive behavioral health facilities. But they do have case managers, so they go through an assessment, and it is voluntary. So if they want to leave, they can. If they don't feel like treatment is productive, either from the staff or from the client, then they can choose together to move somewhere else. Mm-hmm.
thank you.
Councilmember Boyd?
Okay, yes, this is the answer to Mr. Boyce, Councilmember Boyce. Programs that you're talking about, they're called dual diagnosis programs, right? Comorbid, where they focus on the mental and the physical. And my second question is, along Pacific Coast Highway, you said that might be or might not be one of the areas that you're looking at?
So most of Pacific Highway is commercial manufacturing, and north is a transit area, which allows mixed use. So it is potentially something we could look at. It really just depends on if someone can develop that area to make it work for mixed use and commercial uses.
But we are not proposing these facilities in the commercial manufacturing zone, mostly
Correct.
because along the commercial manufacturing, you have things like landscaping and gravel companies where you have a lot of backup noise and equipment. So it's not necessarily protecting the businesses from this use. It's more protecting the people that are receiving these services and that are living there from businesses that are more intense. And so not most of Pac Highway, where we say the opioid treatment programs would make sense, are not suitable locations for these facilities because it's a difference of visiting for an hour, couple hours for treatment versus living there around the clock for a period of a longer time.
Okay, like, would one of these programs that you're talking about would be like where a person could, like, say, get treated for like fentanyl or heroin, get treated with methadone or Suboxone, something like that?
That would be the opioid treatment programs. We've kind of closed that chapter of the presentation and are moving on to these other uses, and those facilities do not provide that type of treatment.
Oh, okay, thank you.
These are more like alcohol addiction, potentially, or?
Not necessarily. So like yeah, that would be in a different category. But like in enhanced service facilities, there's no medications being administered or anything.
Can I give an example?
Yes, please.
Okay, so I have a close family member who was recently diagnosed with a mental health disorder. He's not independent anymore. He would like to seek independence again. So he actually went into an intensive behavioral health facility for a period of 30 days where they were able to give him medication as well as counseling and a bunch of other exposure therapies so that he could then reemerge back to living with a relative. The enhanced service facility example would be if my relative wasn't there to care for him, after he went to this intensive behavioral facility, he could live in that enhanced service facility. So it's basically saying instead of putting people in hospitals or in a jail, there's facilities that can care for their needs so that they're not becoming challenges. My personal example, this person would end up being homeless if not for another family caregiver. And so with that example, that is not to say, there could be co-diagnoses. Someone could also have use disorder because there's a co-occurrence pattern. But this is not specifically for someone to go into detox and rehab. It is because of the driving behavioral health facility.
Okay, so like bipolar or Alzheimer's or
OCD.
dementia going into the other, okay.
Alzheimer's is technically a medical, not a mental health. Little bit of a differentiation there. It needs a little bit different
just-
medical
okay.
care, but think of depression, bipolar, OCD. There's a
Yeah.
cluster of kind of what we think of traditional where you would see a therapist or a psychiatrist
Okay.
is like the best way to wrap
Yeah.
your head around it.
Thank you. Councilmember Fincher.
With these also on the, for the intensive, even the stabilization side, that law enforcement could perhaps, if there was a 3-day hold or whatever, would that be someplace completely separate licensing and all?
That'd be a separate type of facility.
Any other comments? Okay, we can move along.
And then what zones or areas seem appropriate for these uses? We had kind of talked about the medium and high density residential areas and general commercial and community commercial. You guys have input on that? Is there a specific zoning that comes to mind? And do you want me to go back to the zoning map?
You can do that also.
Yeah.
You're getting to learn this real quick, aren't you?
I thought we said we weren't considering the commercial zone.
Not the commercial manufacturing zone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we have a lot of the same terminology in zone. All of our zoning districts are actually listed at the very top of this, not that I think you can read it. But you can see green is agriculture. All these different variations of yellow is a low density residential. And then once we start turning to these browns, it gets to the higher density and then turns into the commercial, the downtown commercial areas. And the midway transits, industrial and blue.
We're bringing these to you because we've gotten a lot of requests of putting them in single-family zones. And right now, our code doesn't say anything. So I guess the first question is, do you all agree that these are larger facilities, 16 beds, probably don't make sense in the single-family zones?
Yes.
Okay, we felt pretty confident. Now, if we're going to say that, we need to say where they would be allowed. And so we can come back to you. I know we're short on time and you have a packed agenda. We can come back to you now that we've done this foundation of the facilities on a little bit more of research and narrowing in on types of zones that we think may be helpful. Our intent was to ask if you had any immediate things like, I don't want them in any residential zones. I only want them in commercial, or I don't want them in commercial. They only belong in residential, because they're a really unique use because they're not purely residential, but people are living there for a duration of time. And so that's where we were asking you all if you had any first impressions, not necessarily for you to pinpoint every single location.
I just say, Lindsay, thanks for being patient with us.
Of course.
Appreciate that.
Are there any questions? Councilmember Larmer.
I think for me, given it's a type or flavor of group home, I think anywhere that we are allowing other types of 16-bed residential facilities, like, I don't know, I guess I'm thinking maybe some of the retirement communities, I feel like it would make sense because it's a similar living situation.
Yeah.
Councilmember Michaud?
Yes, okay, so the individuals in these facilities aren't going out to go like grocery shopping and...
They are able to leave. They pretty much get checked out, so they're under 24-hour supervision, but they can leave and come as they choose. They get visitors. They go on group outings to the movies, and that's typically where the shuttle comes in and provides the services for them. But no one is forced to stay inside or kept, under lock and key. It's really about teaching them how to integrate into the community, more independent living, so they don't want to keep them trapped away from the community.
Okay, we need to look at, like, do they need services?
Typically, like, food and laundry is provided on site, but still, many people still go to work, or maybe they want to go to the library, other activities.
Normally it would be graduated up, but typically they are on site, and then if they go off site, there's supervision or some sort of exposure therapy agreement of you're coming back in 20 minutes or or something like that. So it's very rare for someone to be in these facilities if they do have a full-time job or a job. It would be more of part of their therapy treatment to do activities that they would somewhere in their daily life.
Okay, so they would be probably driven somewhere as a group, so they don't necessarily need to be near other services and stores and things. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. All right, we have 4 items today, and they all have action. Up first, we have Marina Hansen here.
Good afternoon. Marina Hansen, Human Services Manager for the City of Kent. And this is mostly a formality, so hopefully I can give you some time back. But you'll probably remember that we bring this to you every single year as part of our interlocal agreement with SCIP. We are charged with bringing each member city council the work plan and budget for the next year to approve. So it is in your packet. I'm happy to kind of go over the bare basics if you want. Essentially, our goals are the same in terms of funding the expansion and preservation of affordable housing, also developing the policies to expand and preserve, serving as an advocate on behalf of South King County. So it's kind of legislatively and at the county level. And then also, of course, managing the operations and administration of SCIP. Each one of those goals has activities that are attached to it that are identified in your packet. But we are here today to ask for your approval of the work plan and budget. Mayor serves as the vice chair of SCIP. I'm